Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Vampire the Masquerade Clans/Classes series. And this is probably the most barefaced that you're ever gonna see me. And yes, this is precisely the kind of skin tone that I normally wear in my everyday life. And yeah, my lips kind of look blue because that's how they look if I don't put on makeup. Mostly because we're approaching a clan or class that's, let's just say, it intersects some subjects in real world that can be kind of difficult to discuss. So I didn't really want to appear like I'm trying to clown on the more serious issues with my own appearance. I think that would have been the wrong way to approach it. So, we're talking about Malkavians. It is a type of vampire inside Vampire the Masquerade, the tabletop and broader video game universe, that it is defined by ever since the becoming of a vampire. A Malkavian will, as a rule, suffer a mental derangement of sorts. This is where the problems kind of begin. Because when we talk mental derangement of sorts, normally what people mean by that is some sort of a mental issue that exists in the real world. Which means that people are trying to roleplay schizophrenia, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, narcissism, mania, any kind of like mental disorder that you can think of. It can apply to a Malkavian that you create. Now, as a clan, it can actually be a very serious clan or a very non-serious clan. In fact, when the game was first written in the first edition, they were like a half fae, almost sort of thing. So a lot of their abilities, especially higher level ones, revolved around kind of entering the fae realm. They were played in a more of a clan that likes to like pull tricks and that sort of thing. And that whole like trickster archetype, it is still somewhat inside the clan, but ever since like the second edition, they got more refocused on being this seer, someone that can see the otherworldly, the other, but also suffers a great mental derangement as an exchange. As a clan, Malkavians are very intellect focused. The kind of people that they will make into a vampire tend to also be highly intellectual people that are sort of eccentric, if not already borderline mad. And here's another thing, some people that become Malkavian, they are kinda already there, but from a Malkavian's point of view, it's not a defect that they have, but it's potential, because they're already halfway to being a Malkavian, and they're already ostracized by the society. They can already sort of see the other side and be this seer person, this divinatory person, this person that has insights that are not available to regular people. So to push them over the edge, it's not that much of a big deal. But once again, we're talking about a clan that has mental derangements. And some some Malkavians that get embraced, they get to be too far gone. Even if they were made into a vampire embraced from a completely normal person, it just breaks them so much that they're absolutely incapable of functioning. Some Malkavians are capable of functioning, but just about, and they won't necessarily always remember their actions, so accidental turning into a Malkavian is also a thing, especially if, like, the person that turned you into a Malkavian was kind of just having a bit of an episode at that point, and he kind of made you into a vampire and then just fucked off and forgot about you. So that's a thing that happens in the Malkavian society. They are all kind of. It's a clan that's the most disjointed and connected at the same time. Because from an outsider's point of view, it will look like Malkavians have absolutely no organization, or that their actions don't always make sense. But every Malkavian also has access. Even if they can't quite access it, they will kind of intuitively intune it to the Madness Network, which is effectively to say that every Malkavian is psychically linked to every other Malkavian, and that hive mind in itself can give you answers to your life's most pressing questions in a way that you're probably not gonna understand it. Also give you glimpses into other Malkavian random experiences and feelings and any kind of stuff that's happening. And so if Malkavians decide to get together in a group, they don't necessarily need a formal written invitation. They can kind of intuitively just end up at the right place at the right time. And elder Malkavians, in fact, kind of use the whole Madness Network thing to kind of pull at its strings and get the younger people to do what they want them to do, even if they're not quite aware that there are reasons behind the actions that they're performing. The more I rant about this clan, the more I will feel myself like I am just a Malkavian trying to introduce Malkavians to you, because it is a complex topic. The whole mental illness thing making it a bit more complex. I also have a very happy cat in the room that's currently going, ow, ow, ow. So that's also not helping. In general, there are so many things I want to say that's not quite fit for this video, but I'll try and say them anyway. When you have to roleplay a character who has to have some sort of mental issue, hi cat, it's fairly hard to do it right. Hence why this is a hard clan to talk about. When in the first edition they were semi-connected to the Fae, a lot of people would play, oh my god, lol, so random sort of character, from which the term fishmolk came into play, where your person might just decide to use the fish as a weapon or wear a frying pan on their head, and they would be on to this kind of goofy Looney Tunes sort of action. And both the community kind of disliked it, and the game creators also kind of disliked it. Hence why they kind of specified that it is specifically like a mental affliction of a sort. So when you're creating a character, you will likely be choosing from like conditions that exist in real world. But now you're running into the problem of you're trying to roleplay a condition that exists in the real world. And if it's a condition that you yourself don't have, that's gonna be kind of hard to do right without, trying to portray something that exists in the real world as a complete stereotype. It's it's not great. So when video game Bloodlines released, the kind of Malkavian that they portrayed was a lot closer to a fishmonk. They're hearing whispers. The way that they speak is very colorful because all of their lines are different. The whole visionary, able to see the future thing just kind of comes through in the text sometimes. They dressed very eccentrically, and that's how they went with it. And honestly, I kind of really liked that character. I also know of some people that play a Malkavian because they really like the clan and they play it fairly well. Like, my friend Furnace is playing with me in one of the games right now, and he is playing a Malkavian whose derangement is depression. A lot of people will understand depression, therefore it makes it a fairly easy derangement to play. But you see why this is just like a whole bag of things that can get very wrong very fast, to a point where the longer this game goes on for, the more the creators of the game are trying to distance themselves from the problematic bits of the game. So, like, when the new video game Bloodlines 2 is being made, who did they not include? The Malkavians. Gee, I wonder why. Their abilities get changed as well, addition to addition, and honestly, the way that they change their abilities, it kind of mixes up Malkavian lore a little bit. So if you were playing the tabletop V20 edition, then if you were playing Malkavians, then the abilities that they would get would be Auspex, which is the ability to see the unseen. You can see aura, you can see the remnants of somebody's touch on an item, and like scry out who this person was. You can have obfuscate, which is effectively invisibility, and you can have dementation, which is the ability to drive other people crazy. It's a bit more than that, but it kind of ranges from being able to like amplify an emotion that they're feeling to some fairly unreasonable level. So if they're angry, you can make them really angry, or if they're sad, you can make them really sad, to just outright being able to inflict 5 mental derangements on a singular person when you're using that ability. And in V5, they kind of changed Malkavians a little bit. I'm not entirely sure if they were just trying to distance Malkavians from being Malkavians, or whether they were just trying to simplify abilities, because you still get Auspex, the whole seeing thing. You still get Obfuscate, which is the whole invisibility thing. But now instead of getting Dementation, you get Dominate, which is the ability to force another person do something, like you're mentally influencing them. And a subsection of Dominate is Dementation. But you kind of just like get the whole Dominate thing, and from there on, and it sort of branches out. But see how this is like a change? And it's funny because this is kind of a change that lore-wise they kind of went backwards and forwards with before. So this whole ability thing, that in version 5 of the game, which is the newest one, you're playing Malkavians canonically that have Auspex, Obfuscate, and Dominate, it really does my head in lore-wise. And I'm just wondering if they're just trying to make this clan bit easier to digest because, of the whole mental derangement thing, which the company probably feels a bit icky touching, and the player base will always like fight one another about whether or not you're playing Malkavian right. So this is a class slash clan that I personally really love, and I really love the Bloodlines. But I like the people that play it on the kooky and the funny side, like the video game Bloodlines did. Because playing a mental illness at a table seriously kind of hits a bit too close to life for me, which makes it just a bit hard, at least for me personally. And this is like nothing against anyone that plays this clan. I even delayed talking about this clan so late because it's hard for me to talk about something like that. For the purposes of it hits a bit too close to home. It would be like if you had to like roleplay a character that has like a physical disfigurement, but you had like a list of some really interesting physical disfigurements to choose from, like roleplay scoliosis for me. Roleplay the cirrhosis of the liver for me. You know, when you get very like medical and specific and precise, it hits just a tiny bit too close to home. And you just kind of start including real life into this fantasy game, and then it kind of and I know that this is a dark game, and that like this isn't the only like real life part of it. Some really horrible real life movements in our world are also inside this game. So it's not like it is an exceptional part of the whole game. It's just, for me specifically, this is the part that's very hard to talk about. Okay, let's talk about the lore of the Malkavian clan. I'm gonna try and sum it up really, really a lot. So, the clan was started by the creator Malkav. It's one of the original 13 clans. So he was embraced a long, long time ago, and Malkavians can trace back their history to a long, long time ago. And considering that vampires like eat each other and war with one another, and then there's like mages that want to be vampires and tit for tat, there's like a lot of history happening. Not every clan that exists in modern days can trace themselves back to being one of the original founding 13 clans. Some clans disappeared, new clans ate like those founders and took their place. You know, the Wheel of Time, it kind of does its own thing. So the fact that Malkavians are still a thing, and that they were a thing that long time ago, that means something in vampire society. Anyway, at some point, Malkav was ambushed and murdered, but like put a giant question mark above that. And if you get the book Beckett's Diaries, then, and that's supposed to be lore accurate, then what the Malkavians said were true, that instead of like being murdered, he just fell into a deep slumber and has lain underground for a very, very long time. So he still existed. And then there's the Madness Network. A lot of Malkavians believe that Malkav is in part inside the Madness Network, meaning that every Malkavian kind of has a part of Malkav inside of it, and that if he ever wanted to like reconstruct himself, then all of them can just like poof die, and like his consciousness can just recollect itself back and reunite. So that there's like a scary bit. But yeah, they had a founder. He went for a big nap if we take Beckett's Diaries into account. Then at some point a lot closer to the events taking place in Bloodlines in 2004, his children ate him because he kind of ordered everybody to partake in him and eat him, and he just kind of became a part of every single Malkavian. If you just go by the lore, excluding Beckett's diaries, then he was either murdered or went for a big nap, and he became a part of the Madness Network, still kind of spreading to every Malkavian out there. So, however you want to put it, the starter of the clan is sort of still inside every single member of this clan through the Madness Network that exists. The history of Malkavians is quite long, and effectively they go from being seen as seers to being equally seers and jesters. Like, the whole trope that the jester is mad and therefore they can say whatever they want to the king and criticize the king, and the king is not gonna punish them for it. Yeah, that place was also taken by Malkavians, but also they have the powers to divinate and to see the other side and to see the future and that sort of. Well, Malkavians, they don't dabble in necromancy, but they will get visions. You can say divinely inspired visions. So they're kind of. The veil is a very flippy floppy thing when it comes to a Malkavian. Unfortunately, a lot of their visions are very not straightforward. So it's not like something that will happen in the way that it's portrayed specifically. So instead of seeing a president having a heart attack, they might see a giant wolf biting into the heart that is marked with the regalia of the person that's gonna die. It's that sort of thing. It's very mythical and very non-literal, and a lot of the times Malkavians themselves can have issue interpreting what exactly they're seeing. Where was I? Right here. So anyway, so you can see the seers, the jester side. They were considered to be a lower clan for quite a while just because of the whole mentally unstable part. Being able to predict the future with vague visions, great and all, but also when the person that's giving you advice is not stable, but they can just really get unstable really fast. It's kind of like having a ticking bomb in your court. So the relationship between other vampires and Malkavians is kind of a very careful one. They're a very powerful clan, kind of clan that you want to have on your side, but also unpredictable and hard to understand. When psychology started becoming a thing, a lot of Malkavians took great interest in psychology, mostly because they're already living with their own derangements. They have an interest in studying the brain and studying the mind. And a lot of Malkavians either entered into psychology as a patient or became a psychologist themselves. Insane asylums, once again, were great interest to them. Large quantity of people that are mentally unwell in the same place. Where can you study the brain better than right there? Not all experiments were very, nice, but that's just to say that they're very into the whole mental brain things, simply because their own brain ain't braining very well, so mental brain things are kind of their jam at the newer times. Now, remember when I said at the start that the developers that were making Malkavians kind of couldn't really understand what they wanted from it to begin with, and they made them half fae at the very beginning, where they would pull hijinks and do pranks. That part's still there. It's just no longer emphasized because that whole clan got sort of reshaped. moving forward past the first edition. So, a lot of princes in vampire factions, or a lot of ruling heads in vampire factions in general, will want to keep the Malkavians close and to please them, or else something really bad might happen to their own plans just because. Because that crazy person over there, the mental derangement that's standing in your court, can decide to pull a prank on you that will be a lot more sadistic than funny. Just because. Like, that is still a part of their culture. So, once again, other clans, very careful about that. Now, let's speak about something. Let's speak about the part of the lore where Malkavians pulled the great prank onto the other Malkavians. So, which is why their whole ability thing from in version 5 being dominate doesn't quite work very well. And why having the dementation separate from dominate was a lot better, because this is what's part of the lore. So, Malkavians were seen as very dangerous because of the whole dementation and being able to cause madness onto other people, which made them a lot more huntable by other clans than they ever wanted to be. If you're just seen too dangerous in vampire society, the vampire society might just turn around and stick a pitchfork into you, and you don't want to be the one that's hunted. So, in order to prevent this, the elders of the clan changed the clan in ways unknown and incomprehensible, and the result was that the majority of Clan Malkavian discarded dementation in favor of the dominate discipline. But more disturbingly, the majority of Malkavians, even those present at the time of the change, were unaware that this happened. They just believed that they always had the dominate discipline instead of the dementate, okay? A small fragment of the clan preserved dementation, and they defected to be kinda against the clan, anti-tribute. So, if your majority of your clan is in one faction, and if you're in a different vampire faction, you become anti-tribute. So, the Great Prank. The division was fixed in 1997, where for reasons unknown to anyone, the dementation resurfaced within the major part of the Malkavian vampire community. Although several domination Malkavians remained unaffected for some reason. So it went flippity flop, and then it flopped back. Whoa! Yay! So in old rules, you could, because this is like a lore event, you can choose to play a regular Malkavian, or you can play a variant of Malkavian, which is to dominate Malkavian, where instead of dementation, you have domination. You would actually be seen as kind of dangerous by the dementation Malkavians, because for one thing, the people that go with dominate Malkavians, their derangements tend to be a lot more cold and inward, such as sociopathy or psychopathy. It's that kind of cold person, which makes them, and considering that they have power to order other people around, and nobody suspects that because nobody thinks that dominate Malkavians at the moment they're a thing, you can see why the rest of the clan that was like, no, they are actually a thing, and people like, ha, it's Malkavians being crazy again and making up stupid things like Malkavians having dominate. you can see why the rest of the clan would kind of see you as dangerous. They wouldn't like hunt you or anything, but you are now a small subset of a clan that primarily has the demontate. And the reason why your small subset even exists is because of that flippity floppity of the abilities that happened because the elders were like, we're being kind of seen as very dangerous because we have demontate, so let's, flippity floppity to dominate instead. And then it flippity floppity back. Yay, lore. So that was a subset of Malkavians, but now in version 5 of the game, all Malkavians have dominate. And demontate is kind of a subset of dominate. It honestly feels like they really done goofed when it comes to the lore of the Malkavian and with the kind of abilities that they assigned to Malkavian in version 5. But that's just me, just because that lore has the flippity floppity bit. It goes backwards and forwards, and now you instead rewrote their abilities to be something else. Again? Now, you also have like a clan variant that's a bit more dangerous. They to make it quite specific, it is an Anke, and they like divinating based on guts. Great, mostly human guts and gore. Yay, gore! So that little subset of Malkavians, they will be very much into murder and people that get turned into them were also very much into murder. And they will also feel compelled to collect like trophy case based on the murders that they caused, and they like to meditate on their trophy case of murders. And if at any point they lose that, they kind of have to recollect the new trophy case of murders that they have committed, or else they can't recover willpower. So that's Ananke as a variant of Clan Malkavian, a kind of lesser known one. And this one, instead of having Obfuscate, which is the ability to go invisible, they would have Presence, which is the look at me ability. So I suppose they would be seducing their victims by looking extra desirable and being like the center of attention. And then when somebody approaches, you're like, ha! I'm about to reach the future, bitch! From your guts. That's gonna be great. There is like another subset of Malkavians, but the difference with those is more that they're just in the Middle East and that they're Islamic. So there's some history to them, which is Beit Majnun, but other than that, they're like Malkavians. So I feel like it's better to just kind of push that topic aside and let it rest. It's just Malkavians. It feels like the developers just wanted to separate people that practice Islam from people that practice Christianity, which is fine, but it does not really a real subset of a clan make. The only thing I haven't mentioned about Malkavians yet is that the 5th edition of the game, which is the most recent one, introduces compulsions, which is a thing that happens if you botch a roll inside the game. Like, your character just ends up with like some sort of compulsion that they have to be mindful of for the rest of the scene. So when it comes to Malkavians, quite specifically, their extrasensory gifts run wild. And for them, it's like this is the haze of truth being spilled, and for the others, it's Malkavian getting lost in their own figments of imagination. They are still kind of functional, but obviously very distracted. And they take a 2 dice penalty to rolls involving dexterity, manipulation, composure, and wits. And also rolls to resist terror frenzy. Frenzy is the thing where your vampire succumbs to a very primal emotion effectively and runs wild. Like there is no you in that anymore. So if you're really, really hungry, the beast can just like take over like that, and your vampire will attack the first thing. If your vampire is like being threatened with fire or something, they can get really, really scared, and then like the beast takes over and your vampire goes on autopilot. It's that sort of thing. Like that there's no more you inside said vampire. So yeah, they take a 2 dice penalty to all of that, which is a bit boring. But it is what it is. So that is the clan. I don't blame the people that like it. It is quite interesting in the fact that there are obviously a very intelligent and dangerous clan that is also able to see the future. And they're already kind of visionary and occult in that way. But then you kind of drag real world issues and just kind of dump that pot directly onto that clan, and then it becomes a bit hard to navigate because in the end you're playing a game and hopefully not just trying to roleplay real life when at a table. So it also becomes kind of clan that's kind of hard to talk about. Honestly, I like the idea of oh my god, law so random a lot more than a real mental illness, but that's just me. So I think I made myself clear throughout this video, and it became like a very long and rambly thing. It's just it was a clan that was gonna be very hard for me to address, and I've done it. So yay me. Anyway, if my explanations are too unclear, and I understand that it can be, I've left a Wikipedia link to the clan in the description down below. You can read it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section down below. Also, feel free to criticize me and give me corrections. There are already like at least one thing that I will want to correct in the coming months after I reflect on this whole series alone, and there are kind of a couple things that I want to talk about and explain my position versus the position of some other people that they might have, because they were a points of contentment when it came to this series. So just don't take words like at face value. Do fact check me. Go to the Wikipedia, read around. If my rant becomes too unhinged or unclear, I'm just doing this because I really like this tabletop. And I also like some of the games that came out of it in the video game world. So I wanted to find my way of connecting to it, and this is my way of connecting to it. It doesn't really make me the authority on the tabletop, nor does it make me super good at suddenly explaining complex topics. So the Wikipedia is there, it's fairly nicely organized. I do suggest taking a look at it. Thank you if you're still listening to me. Thank you so much for my Patreon supporters. For you make these kind of videos a possibility and something that I can actually do, which I greatly enjoy. So thank you so much, and I hope I'm gonna see you on my other videos. I do a lot of like gameplay videos, I do a lot of occult videos. Well, at the moment I sometimes do occult videos, and sometimes I play retro games, and sometimes I just talk about video games. And for now I'm also talking about a tabletop. So there's that. Thank you for watching. I hope I'm gonna see you next time. Toodaloo.